So Kylie, what happens if our parents and our kids are doing these worksheets and, well, something a bit big comes out that the parents are like, I'm not sure if I know how to deal with this. Maybe their kid's struggling with a bit of anxiety, whether it be to do with health or maybe some eco-anxiety for our teens probably. Where can these parents go for a little bit of help and if they need some extra?
Yeah, the chances are that some big things may actually come up that sort of thing. Oh, well, that went deep pretty quickly. I think it's about saying, well, what type of questions would the kids like to ask? Like if it's about dad having COVID and having to sleep in the back room and they weren't allowed to give him a hug, like how did that actually make them feel? And just ask those clarifying questions and maybe then saying, okay, well, what questions would you like to ask dad so that they can process them a bit easier? And really then looking at, okay, well, what other sort of support systems, if we're getting to the point where you do think they might need to speak to other people. There are very many services available, and I know you're going to pop them on your website for people to access as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's really just acknowledging those feelings, because sometimes as parents they scare us, and to say it's okay to actually feel this way. I felt that way a little bit, and like we said before, it's about that vulnerability coming up. But then just open that conversation. Don't be as scared of those feelings. Just really ask the questions, engage in the conversation, and give them an outlet to actually get them out.
So just talking about it might be enough to put them at ease. Is that what you're saying?
100%. I think if you do see some big feelings coming out, actually pull them apart and then give them some options to explain those in different ways. And don't be afraid to actually name the feelings. Like if they are feeling anxious or they're feeling frustrated, label them so they don't, it's not just, because some kids, particularly the little ones, it's like happy or sad. That's about the emotional development point that they're actually at. So, okay, I can feel that you're feeling a bit anxious about that. Let's go and ask Dad how he actually felt then and how did he feel about not being able to give you a hug. But it may also just be about really just letting them sit there and say, it's okay to feel like this. You're allowed to feel those big emotions, and they may not always be positive. And that's okay. Yeah, and we feel them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we know if that's such a great tool for parents to be doing that, to know it's okay to talk and giving us a really good excuse to talk about these big things like vaccines and masks and sanitizer and dad not being at work and no hugs and not seeing grandma and all of those things. What would be a warning sign to look out for if we've had those conversations, we've let the feelings out, we've pulled them apart? Is there any sort of like signs that we should know about that, hang on, we might actually need to go and get a little bit more help here?
If something comes up that is confronting to you and you feel like the emotion is quite high, it may be about getting to the point of that conversation where you feel like your child is actually okay, but then making some check-in points as you move forward. Like, that conversation that we had yesterday, how are you feeling about that now? And just give them that chance to just keep checking in to say, okay, yeah, I was able to ask my questions, I feel okay, or I'm still thinking about, so it becomes more of a continuous conversation and it goes way beyond after they've finished their worksheet and they've been able to get those feelings out. Just have those regular check-ins. But I think also that we might find that some of the conversations are quite confronting for the parents, because it might be, Mum, you remember in 2020 when you were really scared and you took us out of school, and that's what's making me anxious now. And so that might be confronting for a parent. So how do you be able to say, yeah, I know I did, but this was really why? And just be really honest. I mean, kids do value honesty. And they want to know that you did it because you cared for them. And that was the reason. And that will take that, that frightened feeling, like we all thought we were going to die in 2020, but now look where we've come to. But the decisions that we made with the information that we had at that point were really because we love them.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess we might need to, if we've been shocked by the question, we might need to go and think about it and then talk about it again the next day and the next week ourselves after we've processed what that question was. That we might need to come back and say, what did you mean by that? Like, get it a little bit deeper.
And we might actually need to find our own support services. Like you ring up your girlfriend or your mum and say, Mum, blah blah's just asked me this. What am I going to do with that? And be able to process that with ourselves as well. So looking after ourselves, looking after our kids, and making sure that we have those regular check-ins so that we can just touch that base and see how they're travelling now that they've got that big feeling out. And I know you've got some excellent examples to show us of some things that have already come back.
I do. Let's have a look what we've got here. So this one was all about recording his feelings, which I thought was really good. There's going to be a bit of a dad topic going on, I believe. When Dad was at home, what happened? Because a lot of our kids are used to Dad always being at work in a lot of family situations. So when Dad was home and he couldn't hug us and he stayed out in the camper working out there, and this 6-year-old has recorded how that made him feel. So drawing a picture just about how you feel is a really, really powerful tool. Obviously I use visual arts to express a lot of things I deal with, and then we can have a bit of fun with it too. We've had the conversations. We don't need to necessarily get all serious with our worksheet. I love this one. It still relates to the pandemic, and it just speaks volumes about what everybody's experiencing. Because when Godzilla uses sanitizer, he lets an atomic blast into the air because he's been fighting King Kong too much and his hands are covered with cuts and they sting. I think we can all relate to that. That just like encapsulates so much of what's happened in the pandemic in a really fun, entertaining way. I can't wait to see this one in the book.
They understand that everyone's been affected, even Godzilla.
Even Godzilla is affected by the pandemic, that's right. And this one here, when Dad was home, he was out for action for 2 days and slept on the couch. Very unusual for this dad to be spending 2 days on the couch. So that's something that little Miss Seven's going to remember for a long time. That one time when Dad was home and was a bit sleepy. Thanks, Kylie. That's some great tools to work with as a parent, and I guess as any important adult in our kids' lives. Thank you so much.